Have a nightmare of your own? Share it with us through the Google form in the description if you dare. We just might turn your story into our next video, and your name will haunt the credits. If this tale chilled your bones, like the video and subscribe for more horrors lurking in the dark. We're listening, always listening.
It began with the fog, not the kind that creeps in slowly and coils between trees, but a choking, suffocating wall of white that rolled in off the sea like it had a mind of its own. Liam had lived in Grayshore his whole life. The coastal town was known for its abandoned docks, rusting ship hulls, and the ever-present smell of brine. He thought he'd seen every kind of weather the ocean could spit up. But this fog, this was different. It didn't smell like salt. It didn't even feel cold. Felt wrong. That first night, it came in after midnight, spilling over the cliffs in thick sheets. The power flickered. Dogs barked uncontrollably. Liam had been in his room, gaming with headphones on, when his screen suddenly froze. Every sound in the house died. Even the hum of the refrigerator went silent. Then, from outside, he heard a low, humming sound. Not a plane, not a boat, something else. Liam pulled off his headset and went to the window. The fog was so dense he couldn't see past the porch light, and even that was dim and flickering like it was struggling to stay alive. The air shimmered with static. Something buzzed at the edge of his hearing, like a signal he wasn't supposed to receive. It felt like the sky had lowered itself onto the town. Then he saw the light dot a pulse. Brief, cold white. Not lightning, not headlights. It floated just above the fog line, distant but unnaturally still. It blinked once, then vanished. Liam backed away from the window. He didn't sleep that night. By morning, the fog had retreated like a tide going out, leaving dew-covered streets and a town that seemed just a little quieter than usual. People walked around looking up at the sky instead of their phones. Something about the air felt wrong, like it had been filtered. Liam met up with his best friend, Nate, near the diner. Nate had the same story. His phone died, the power blinked, and he'd seen something in the fog. It was hovering, bro, not moving. Like a glitch in a game, Nate said, drawing shapes in the condensation on the window. Then poof, gone. They were still talking when Mrs. Delaney's daughter ran down Main Street screaming. Liam turned in time to see Clara Delaney, mid-30s, school teacher, barefoot and in pajamas, clutching a phone in one hand and sobbing. She's gone. My mom, she was just there. She was in the house. People gathered. Sheriff Nolan showed up within minutes. They all listened as Clara explained. She checked in on her mother around 1 a.m. Mrs. Delaney had been knitting in her chair, the TV murmuring in the background. At 7 a.m. she was gone. No unlocked doors, no broken windows, no signs of forced entry. Just gone. And in her place, resting on the seat of her recliner, was a small circle of burned fabric, charred black in a perfect ring. That was when the rumors began. Some said it was the fog. Others said it was the light in the sky. A few whispered about abductions like they were back in some weird 90s conspiracy theory. Liam didn't know what to believe. But that night, the fog came back. Thicker, colder, and this time it brought whispers. Liam couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching him. It wasn't just paranoia. There were changes happening in town that nobody could explain. Animals were acting strange. Birds had stopped chirping entirely. The local dogs either barked nonstop or refused to go outside when the fog rolled in. Mr. Hargrove's cat had clawed through a window screen just to escape the house the previous night. Liam's mom said it was just the weather, but Liam had other ideas. He was digging through his late grandfather's old ham radio set in the garage when he heard the sound again, that low hum, almost beneath the range of hearing. Static rippled through the radio even though it wasn't plugged in yet. He hooked it up, fiddled with the dial, and suddenly the static gave way to something else. A pattern. 3 short pulses. A pause. 1 long, steady tone. Then silence. Then it repeated. Liam sat frozen. His grandpa had been a radio nut, and Liam knew Morse code from childhood summers spent messing with this old gear. But this wasn't Morse. It wasn't human. He recorded it on his phone. When he played it back, the tone didn't sound the same. It was layered. Beneath it, something shifted, almost like a voice speaking behind a curtain of white noise. Not English. Not anything Liam recognized. But his body reacted before his brain could. His ears rang. His nose bled. The lights in the garage dimmed and brightened twice, like someone flipping the switch on and off from the other side of the world. Then the fog hit the windows. thick, pressing against the glass like a living thing. Liam turned off the radio, and the fog retreated. The next day, Liam and Nate took bikes to the edge of town. Something was happening beyond Grayshore. They could feel it. They passed by 4 houses with their front doors wide open. Nobody inside. Mail piling up. Breakfast dishes still on the table. One place had water running in the bathroom sink, the mirror fogged with condensation, but the house was cold. Deserted. "Bro, it's like they got up and vanished," Nate whispered. That's when they saw the scorch mark. It was right in the middle of someone's living room rug, a perfect circle no bigger than a dinner plate, just like the one left on Mrs. Delaney's recliner. Burned clean through the fabric and into the wood beneath. "What the hell does that?" Nate asked, crouching down. "A laser." Liam didn't answer. His head was pounding again. A soft whine crept into his ears as if the fog had left something behind, like a tuning fork ringing just under the skin. They got back on their bikes. But the streets weren't empty anymore. At the end of Ashmill Lane stood 3 figures. Tall, thin, unmoving, dressed in matte gray suits that didn't reflect light. Their heads were too round, limbs too long, no faces. Liam blinked. "Gone. Did you see that?" Nate whispered. Liam nodded. Then, in the distance, they heard it again, the low hum, rising now, vibrating through the concrete beneath their wheels. The fog was coming early, and this time it wasn't rolling. It was hunting. By the 5th day, Grayshore was unraveling. No internet, no cell service. Power outages rolling block by block. The town's only gas station had been stripped bare in a panic, and the sheriff's office was closed, door hanging open as if they'd left mid-coffee. People were leaving, trying to, but something about the roads was wrong. Nate's cousin Ben had tried to drive out at dawn. He made it halfway up the hill to the freeway when the fog swallowed him whole. His car rolled back down empty. No Ben. The fog left another scorch mark in the front seat. Liam didn't leave his house that night. Neither did his mom. They sat together on the couch without speaking, listening to the storm of static that now lived in the silence between everything. And always, the fog returned. Liam's garage window cracked from the pressure, no storm, no wind. Just a groan and then a loud pop. When he checked the radio again, the signal had changed. Now it was a voice. Buried in distortion, it repeated one phrase in a language Liam had never heard. But something inside him understood the meaning, not through translation, but through feeling. Observe, dissect, cleanse. The words played over and over. Liam shut off the radio. He didn't sleep. He just waited, lights off, knife in hand. The fog touched the door this time, and whispered his name. The next morning, Liam and Nate met in secret near the cliffs. Above them, in the pale sky, 4 glowing objects hovered silently. Not moving, not flashing, just watching. People were pretending not to see them. Walking faster, heads down. But you could feel the change in the air, like the sky had developed weight, like the clouds had veins. "I think this is a harvest," Nate said quietly. Liam stared at him. "They're taking us. Testing. Sampling. Like how we tag animals in the wild, right? We put trackers on bears. I think we're the bears now." Liam didn't laugh. He couldn't. They decided to go see Old Man Griggs. He was a conspiracy nut, ex-military, lived alone in the lighthouse on the edge of town. Always ranting about them, listening about signals in the sky. Griggs was waiting for them. The front door was wide open. Inside, he had set up what looked like a panic room, screens, antennas, notebooks, wires snaking across the floor. "I told you boys," he said, eyes wide. "They don't come in ships. They come in frequencies. Thoughts. They talk through your bones before your ears." Liam showed him the recording. Griggs paled. "That's not them talking to you," he said. "That's them talking through you." Then he lifted his shirt. On his chest were 3 small circles of scorched flesh, perfectly aligned, burned into the skin. "They marked me years ago," he whispered. Then, outside, the fog began to rise fast and furious. Griggs went silent, and the lights in the sky began to descend. The fog surged in like a living tide, faster than Liam had ever seen. Within seconds, the lighthouse was swallowed in white. Every window turned opaque. The air grew heavy, like breathing through a wet cloth. Old Man Griggs locked every door and pulled steel shutters across the windows. "They can't come through metal," he muttered. "Not quickly, anyway." The hum was back, low, vibrating the floorboards. Liam pressed his hands against his ears, but it didn't help. It wasn't in his ears. It was inside his skull. A beam of pale blue light pierced the fog outside the window. It wasn't like a spotlight, it didn't cut through the fog. It illuminated it, like turning on a light inside a liquid. Then a shape passed by the window. Humanoid. Elongated. drifting more than walking. Its limbs hung like cords, loose and slow. No face, just smooth gray flesh and a slight shimmer around its body like heat rising from asphalt. It stopped in front of the door. Liam's breath caught in his throat. Griggs slowly reached for a switch on the wall, a large, industrial-style toggle surrounded by copper coils. "I rigged an EMP," he whispered. "Not sure if it'll fry them, but it sure messes with whatever they're using to move." The creature raised one arm. 3 fingers spread out like antennae. Griggs flipped the switch. A bang like thunder cracking inside the room. The lights went out, and the thing outside screamed not audibly but through them. Liam fell to his knees, clutching his head. Then silence. When the lights came back, the fog had retreated. The thing was gone, but Griggs was bleeding from his eyes. They buried Griggs on the cliffs at sunrise. Nate cried quietly while Liam stood staring out at the ocean, which now shimmered with odd ripples, too perfect to be wind, too still to be waves. They brought back Griggs' notebooks, dozens of them filled with drawings, equations, and coordinates. One map in particular caught Liam's attention. A grid over Grayshore. Circles marked in red, tiny, perfect, methodical. At least 20 homes were marked. The same homes where people had disappeared. Mrs. Delaney's house. Ben's car. All of them were on it. Liam turned the page. There was a pattern. Every 3 days, 3 disappearances. In equidistant points. Like a crop rotation. Like harvesting. "They're not abducting randomly," Nate said. "They're studying. Watching how the rest of us react." Liam circled today's date. The pattern suggested that tonight, 3 more would go. They looked at each other. "If we don't do something, it's us next," Nate whispered. Liam nodded. They decided to return to the burned houses, search for anything the creatures might have left behind. What they found was worse than they imagined. In one basement, behind a false wall, they discovered a cocoon. Organic. Veined. Pulsing slightly. Inside was a shape. Human. Mouth stretched wide, frozen in mid-scream. Still breathing. They ran. Neither Liam nor Nate could find words for what they'd seen. That cocoon, that thing, was still alive. Somehow, whatever was inside hadn't been fully taken. It was being stored. Harvested. "Dude, they're not just taking people," Nate said breathlessly as they reached the edge of town. "They're keeping them." Liam stopped. "That means they're coming back for them." They returned to Griggs' lighthouse, this time fully armed. They carried a crowbar, an axe, and the last functioning battery for Griggs' EMP switch. Liam kept the shortwave radio strapped to his chest, listening to the low-frequency drone that was now a constant backdrop to their lives. Inside one of Griggs' journal entries was a phrase, underlined multiple times, "Where the signal intensifies, the veil is thinnest." The signal was strongest near the cliffs. They followed it. Half a mile through fog-choked woods, they found it, a crater in the earth still steaming faintly. Trees bent away from it like they were fleeing. At the center, embedded in the soil, was a large obsidian stone, or what looked like one. It hummed, pulsed, and it wasn't alone. They saw footprints, long, 3-toed. Dozens of them trailing in and out of the crater like a trail to and from hell. Then came the scream. It wasn't human, but it came from underground. They returned at night, determined to destroy the cocoon before the next wave of disappearances. Liam didn't know if the person inside could be saved, but he knew one thing for sure: they weren't dead yet. The fog rolled in faster than before. It was no longer waiting until midnight. It was adapting. As they broke into the basement, the low frequency from Liam's radio spiked into a shriek, and the house itself seemed to shift. Drywall cracked. Lights flickered, then died. They reached the cocoon. It was still pulsing, but now others were growing beside it, smaller, newer, still forming. Liam didn't hesitate. He swung the axe. The blade cut deep into the membrane, and a jet of steaming fluid sprayed across the floor. The cocoon spasmed. Inside, the figure's mouth moved. She's still alive," Nate shouted, dropping beside it. "It's Clara Delaney." They dragged her out, coughing, gasping, coated in a translucent mucus that stung their skin. She screamed and kept screaming even when Liam covered her mouth. That's when the floor above them creaked. 1, 2, 3 distinct footfalls. Then the light from the stairwell dimmed. The fog was inside the house now. Liam looked to Nate, then back to the EMP trigger in his hand. He flipped it. A crackling pulse exploded outward. The walls shook. The cocoon burst apart. The fog retreated just for a second. Then all hell broke loose. They fled the basement with Clara slung between them, her body limp and trembling like she'd run a marathon in her sleep. Outside, the fog wasn't just rolling, it was alive. It twisted in impossible shapes, parting and curling like it was being herded by an unseen force. The lights in the sky were no longer distant. They hung directly above Grayshore now, silent and unmoving, like eyes without lids. Clara whispered something as they ran. Liam leaned in. "What did you say?" Her voice was raw, almost cracked. "They come when you forget. When your mind blanks. They find the silence between thoughts. They ride the absence." Behind them, the fog screamed. Not with a voice, but with a frequency that made teeth rattle and eyes water. They reached the lighthouse again barely and slammed the metal door shut. Liam activated the EMP a second time, but the unit sparked and died. "Batteries cooked," he muttered. Nate pointed out the window. "Dude, look." Where the fog had once been solid, it now thinned in one direction toward the crater. Toward the black stone. It was glowing. "It's not a ship," Liam realized. "It's a transmitter." Griggs had written that they don't come in ships, they come in signals. The crater wasn't a landing site. It was a beacon. They made their final plan in silence. Clara couldn't stand, but she could point. She remembered flashes of being watched from above, dissected by something not quite physical. She remembered whispers in her bones. 1,000 voices all saying the same word in different languages. Assimilate. Liam took Griggs' last backup battery and one of the remaining EMP charges. He slung the radio over his shoulder, opened the old military pack full of copper wire and grenades, and headed out alone. Nate stayed behind with Clara. The fog was fully sentient now, curling around the road like tendrils. But it parted for him as if curious. Watching. He reached the crater and stood before the black beacon. It was humming at a deafening pitch, invisible to the ears but heavy in the skull. Liam spoke into the radio. Not to the town. To them. "I know what this is. You watch. You test. You harvest." The beacon pulsed faster, like a heartbeat recognizing its host. "But you're not gods. You're parasites." He connected the EMP to the copper lines, wrapped them around the transmitter like a net, and activated the countdown. The fog recoiled. Something shrieked in the sky. "Observe this," Liam whispered. The explosion was silent. A flash of blue light. Then nothing. Grayshore woke the next morning to clear skies for the first time in weeks. No fog. No hum. No lights. Nate found Liam at the edge of the crater, burned, coughing, alive. Clara recovered. Others never returned. Some say the fog still waits just off the coast. But Liam kept the radio. And some nights it still turns itself on. Just to whisper, "We remember."